I should start with one of many, many truths that is going to be involved in this program, and that is that I've never done this before, and so as a result, I'm not entirely confident. I'm used to being recorded for reasons that I will explain later, aside from playing the piano, but I'm not used to dealing with a camera. And now I have to deal with the camera, and I even have to look at it because I'm told that's where I will find you. So this is a first, and I hope you can put up with all the mistakes that I make. You should find out first who I am. My name is John. I assume that with the internet, people can find out my whole name, and so it's John Wilder. My mother told me that I was named John after one of the principal authors of the Bible, and that's where my name came from, which is pretty benign, very common name, but nobody thinks to tell me what my father told me is that I'm not named after anybody in the Bible. Actually, John, I'm named after toilets and long underwear and prostitutes' clients. Now, that's my first effort at humor. And it is something that has been missing since COVID hit for 2 solid years, is that no one seems to have a sense of humor anymore, or if they had one, they certainly have suppressed it. The other thing that we are lacking is truth, and that one I can solve because everything I tell you in this program will be the truth. And I don't know where else you can go to find that. When I first started planning this, I was going to make it very professional, very structured. I wanted to use a teleprompter and write out every word that I was going to say. And I gave up on that. Even though I wrote the words, I decided I haven't lived my life with a teleprompter, and I'm not going to start now. I considered using electric keyboards to embellish everything that I play on the piano, and I finally decided not to do that. And matter of fact, I gave up all the electronics except what I'm talking to right now and the recording. I was going to buy a nice suit because I don't own a suit, and a white shirt and a tie, which I also don't own. And I got to thinking, you know, that's not who I am. It isn't who I've been for my whole life, and I'm not going to start now. And then I also considered doing multiple takes of everything that I play before this whole program is over, and decided that I'm not doing a recording for a record or a CD or something like that. And ultimately I decided that playing by ear is the absolutely most unstructured type of music that there is, and that's exactly how I should present myself and the whole program, is as unstructured as I possibly can. Obviously, I've got 2 little cue cards here, so I don't forget everything but my name, which at my age is also possible. But it just seems inappropriate to approach totally unstructured music with a totally structured program. So I decided to eliminate all of it. And that also allowed me to, I think, enjoy myself. And if I can't have fun doing it, I don't want to do it. And so I'm making this as fun as I possibly can by just saying, to hell with it. I'm not going to try to do everything exactly right. My first truth was, that's pretty simple. The second truth, and I need to start with this, is that no one can teach you to play by ear. No one. I can't do it. Piano teachers can't do it. It's impossible. You have to learn it yourself, you have to teach yourself. The only thing I can do, and it is exactly what I have laid out and planned and will do, is to give you every conceivable tool that you need to teach yourself to play by ear. And if you have those tools, you can do it. Those tools come from basically 4 sources. Number 1 is what's up here in your head. Number 2 is what's in your heart. Number 3 is what's in your fingers. And number 4 is this wooden piece of equipment without any electricity in it whatsoever. And using those 4 tools and the way I will detail it, you will end up being able to teach yourself by ear. And so let me explain some of the downsides of me trying to do this and put those aside, because one of them is very obvious. I'm obviously not a youngster. I have seen 79 summers, and the impact is basically threefold, none of which are helpful to me. I grew up shortly, well, actually within, but near the end of what I would call the golden years of music. And that's the 1930s and the 1940s. Those are the years of the big bands and the songs that musicians refer to as the standards. The reason they're called the standards is because they're going to last forever. They're just beautiful songs, wonderful songs. And that's what I play. I particularly like ballads for reasons that I'll explain later. But the younger of you have grown up during a period where the music has become, and I think the correct phrase would be darker, much darker. And I actually was fiddling around with the internet, which I am absolutely terrible at, and I found a site, I guess that's what you call it, where they had analyzed music over the last, I don't know, 60 or 70 years. And they actually analyzed it by content and by whether or not it was either romantic or light or pleasant or enjoyable versus what they called dark music, and which means that acid rock and nasty lyrics and just not happy or pleasant music to listen to. And it was absolutely amazing how much music has changed according to them, and where the music of the 30s and the 40s was way up here and the dark music of today would be down here. It completely shifted. And the vast majority of music now is the dark music. And I just don't do that. And so my age is showing something fierce, I suspect. But if you're looking for rap or acid rock or any kind of rock, if you want country and western only, I just don't do that kind of music. But I play music that is intended to touch people and to make them feel good 99% of the time. The second problem with being 79 years old is language. I thought at one point when I was trying to write verbatim what I was going to say today and in the future, I thought I would start with, ladies and gentlemen. And then I thought, that's probably not even acceptable anymore. That's probably considered politically incorrect. So that being the case, I have no idea what words to use many times, and it is almost guaranteed that somehow, at some point, I will offend somebody. And in our society as it is today, offending somebody, offending anybody is incredibly easy, which is very sad, but that's that. The third problem with my age is that I am a Luddite. If you don't know what a Luddite is, I won't give you the details except to say that it is a person who has a pathological hatred and terror of technology in every form. And that's me. I know how to turn on my computer for reasons that I will explain. And with that, I will tell you what my other non-qualifications are. I have spent 40 years as what I called the teeny-weeny judge of Monte Vista. That was the municipal judge. I called myself teeny-weeny because I wanted to keep myself, my perspective, in good perspective, and not think that I was better or smarter than anybody else. But I spent 40 years as a part-time judge. That's not much help for this. I have spent and am still spending 50 years as an attorney. I'm not one of the attorneys that you see billboards. I'm an attorney that had only an office practice. I learned to hate the court system, except for my own little teeny-weeny court. And that's how I spent 50 years of my life. And 64 years I've spent as a professional pianist. There had to be some reason I'm trying to do this. And I will explain that as briefly as I can in a few moments. But before I ever get around to that, I need to tell you another truth. And that is that a very small percentage of people cannot play by ear. I have invented over the course of the last few months 2 tests. And if you pass both of these tests, I probably shouldn't say this, but I can almost guarantee you that you have the capacity, the ability to play by ear if you truly want to and if you're willing to work at it. If you flunk either of these tests, particularly the first one, then you should go find something else to do and not try to play the piano by ear, because I doubt that you could do it. So here's the first test. I'm going to play what's called an octave. Now, an octave simply means, well, I'll show you what it means. I'll start with middle C, and an octave is this. It ends with 2 notes. I don't know why. You have to study music theory, and you came to the wrong place for that. There's some kind of connection between those 2 notes, and that's called an octave. I'll explain what a scale is in more detail later on. But for now, all you need to know is that that is an octave. This is an octave. This is an octave. This is an octave. That's what octaves sound like. So I'm going to play 3 samples. If you pick the correct one, which will be either 1, 2, or 3, then you are not, in all likelihood, you are not tone deaf. And remember, 95% of the people born on this planet are not tone deaf. So here's your first choice. Here's your second choice. And here's your last choice, third. Okay, now if you chose number 3, you're not tone deaf, and in all likelihood, you'll be able to play by ear, especially if you get through the next test. If you could not pick 3 from those 3 choices, you really are tone deaf, and you should not even think of playing the piano by ear. You could still take lessons and learn to read, but you couldn't play by ear. The second test involves chords, and there are really two elements to all the music I play. There is the melody, which is this, single notes at a time, and then there are chords that go with that melody. And it's whatever the composer decided what he wanted to do. There's a lot of chords that go with a single note of the melody, but it's up to the composer to decide what the chords will be through the entire song. So this next test involves chords, but it's very, very simple chords. And the first thing I had to come up with was a song that would probably come close to being universally recognized. And I came up only because of its familiarity. I mean, it's April right now, but it's a Christmas song, and it's Silent Night. And I will play first the melody, the first 8 notes, which are identical. They're not identical, but the chord that goes with all 8 notes is the same chord. And the melody is this. Now, if you don't recognize that as the first 8 notes of Silent Night, you'll have to pass this test. Just give up on it, because you have to have some memory of what that song sounds like. So I'll play it again. Now I'm going to play 5 chords, and you have to pick which of these 5 you believe are the chords that go with that melody, the first 8 notes of Silent Night. So here we go. That's number 1. Here's number 2. Here's number 3. Here's number 4. And here's number 5. Now, if you chose anything except number 3, you probably should give up playing by ear and go find a channel or a website that has tennis or golf or something like that. If you chose number 3, then I am very, very comfortable saying that you will be able to play by ear if you put the effort into it. So, if you're still here, we've already determined that you're not tone deaf. The next quality that you have to have is dexterity. And dexterity means that when your brain looks at the keyboard and says, I want this finger to hit that key, it will do that. So you have to work to do this, and you have to learn scales. Now, I'll show you a C scale, which is the most simple, and that's this. And you need to watch how the fingers work. And that's the first thing you'll learn, will be that scale on those keys. You'll also learn it in the left hand. I blew that one off, but that's okay. That's a C scale using both hands. That's one of the things you're going to have to do, because when you get done, You'll be able to do scales like that on every single note, every key. There'll always be major scales. You won't do minor scales. A minor scale doesn't even sound very happy. It sounds dismal. Here's a minor scale in C. It's almost disgusting. So don't worry, you'll never have to do those. And of course, then after you have some dexterity, your confidence will start to build dramatically because you'll be able to actually finger music on the piano. So I've given you all the reasons that I'm not competent to do this. My age, the language, the technology. I need to demonstrate that I know what I'm doing before we go any further, or you have no reason to listen to any more than I have to say. I have already told you all of the reasons that I am probably not qualified to do this program, but I promised you that I was not a fraud, and it's time for me to prove that, if nothing else, I'm not a complete fraud. So I'm going to play a couple of songs. One of the things you have to keep in mind is that I'm not making a CD. If I was making a CD, I would probably have to play the first song 25 or 50 times to make it error-free. And I'm not out to make anything error-free in this program, which should already be obvious by now. So there'll be mistakes in it, and I'm not going to fix them unless I completely blow it, in which case I'll have to re-record starting with right now. In any event, this first one goes back to 1890, and it was written, I think, Kathy Bates, was that her name? I don't know. She wrote America the Beautiful. And I think it was associated with her first view or being on top of Pikes Peak. And she wrote America the Beautiful, and this is that song. And it goes like this, but this is my version. This is not anything I read. I learned the song by hearing it all my life, essentially. And it goes like this. Well, there's plenty of mistakes, but if you have an ounce of patriotism in you, that song has to touch you. And I don't know what there is about music, but I don't know of any other art form that touches people the way music does. Classical music and opera, what touches people is the beauty and the complexity of the music and the coordination of the orchestra and the opera singers. And if you're interested in classical music, you came to the wrong place. You need to go back and take piano lessons, go to college, to a music school. Then there's the songs that I play, which are basically what touches people are the melodies, the chords, and quite often the lyrics. And then there are, the other thing that I love to play are musicals, such as Camelot, and all the songs, many of the songs that are in the musicals. And what touches people there is not just the music and the lyrics, but also the story. Lyrics and stories touch us simply because they deal with our lives, the tragedies, the triumphs, the hopes, the dreams, everything that happens to us. And that's why I play the music I play. That's popular music and show tunes and things like that. Music that touches people on a very personal level. I just find songs that I truly love. I learn to play them using the music I've shown you, and also tremendously using my ear, which you already have, even though you don't probably know it. And then I create my own version of that song, and that's the joy of it all. So, the second song is profoundly touching for a different reason. It was written in the 1790s at the time that England was going through an internal war politically over the existence of slavery in the British Empire. And the song is Amazing Grace. If you don't know the history of it, I'll give it to you as quickly as possible. It was written by a sea captain who captained a slave ship that made the routine from England to Africa to the West Indies, and then up to Maine and that area, and then back to England. And it was just a constant circle of taking slaves and then bringing goods, such as from the West Indies sugar, from the northeast of the United States, rum, and take it all to England, collect a lot of money, take a small amount of that money, go to Africa, and so on and so forth. And this sea captain found the Lord or something. I don't know what phrase you want to put on it. And he quit. And he was so appalled at what he had done and what he had seen on these slave ships, which were absolutely horrifying, that he wrote Amazing Grace. And this is not his version of Amazing Grace. This is my version of it. I don't think I had to read a lot of music to put it together, the basic simple song, because I think I knew the simple melody and the simple chords. And then I created this. what I turned the Sea Captain's song into. Both of those songs, as I said, I learned by listening to them. America the Beautiful, we probably heard it every July 4th for all of my early years. Amazing Grace was a religious song that we heard all the time. So I didn't need music to put it together. But you need to remember that if learning to play by ear, the only path you have is by listening. It's a tough path to follow. Just learning the melody of a new song by listening can require you to listen to it dozens and dozens of times. And you have to memorize it and learn it in whatever key it's being presented to you in, whatever you're listening to. And then you have to take all of those notes that you hear as you listen to them and put them on the keyboard. Again, I'm assuming you can't read at all. And you do it with your right hand, regardless of what key it's written in, that's the key you have to play it in. Then when you're done with that challenge, which is quite sizable, then you have to transpose it to the key of C, which I will show you how to do. Then you have to figure out the chords, which is truly a challenge because you're only going by what you hear. And unless you have a significant knowledge of chords, learning the chords to a new song just by listening to it over and over is a pretty monumental task. And if the song is at all complicated, chord-wise, it's almost insurmountable. I have learned hundreds of songs in this way many times, and even with my knowledge of chords, it can take a great deal of work. So without the ability to read simple treble clef music one note at a time, you are faced with a lot of unnecessary time and effort just learning a melody. Without an extensive knowledge of chords, it almost becomes hopeless. That's why learning to play by ear requires a rudimentary, and I emphasize that word, it means a simple ability to read simple music. And that is why I have tried to simplify the whole process as much as humanly possible. When I turned about 12, I had to relearn how to read the treble clef because I had had 5 years of disastrous lessons from age 5 to 10. And I learned how to do it one note at a time. I had to teach myself the second time, but I did have the benefit of the lessons. I had to memorize what will prove to be 32 basic chords, which is what you need to play a huge percentage of the songs in the key of C. And I had to select those chords from experience, and I had to memorize them, and I didn't have a teacher, and I did it. Then I had to figure out how to transpose music from any key to the key of C, and I will show you how to do that. None of them are really complex things. If you take each one at a time, they're basically simple, but some of them are time-consuming and some of them are tedious. Like I said, the first thing you have to do is the scales, because you have to build the dexterity so that your fingers will do what your brain tells it to do in terms of hitting keys. That's absolutely essential. Learning the notes on sheet music, there's only 5 lines and 4 spaces. That shouldn't take a rocket scientist, and you're only dealing with the first few letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You do have to deal with sharps and flats, that's the black keys, but that's not a monumental undertaking. You gods, if you learn the alphabet, there's 26 things you have to remember. But once you have those simple tools, and you can put music into the key of C. And once I could do it, I could finally create my own arrangement of any song. And it was my arrangement, and except for the basic melody and the basic chords, it was my creation. And it's that word, the creativity, that alone makes playing by ear the joy that it is. When you read music, you create nothing. When you start playing by ear, you create everything except that basic melody and chord. And that's what makes it so incredibly wonderful and different. I hope this little demonstration that I did on the piano has dispelled any suspicion that I am a fraud. And creativity is so absolutely important. It's the foundation. It's the very reason that you learn to play by ear, is because you get to create. There'll be a part of my program in the future that talks about piano teachers and piano teaching industry, and the fact that they are actually hostile to people playing by ear, because they want you to do one thing and one thing only, and that is read. And when you read music, I don't care how complex it is, when you are reading music, there is no creativity whatsoever. You're simply doing as you are told, and that there's nothing more to it. And that's why people give it up. That's why hundreds of thousands start piano lessons in a single year, and most of them end up quitting. But I've talked enough for one day, and now I've played enough for one day, and so I bid you adieu. And if you stick with this, you will be able to play by ear.